Hello, parents. Welcome to the Masterful Parenting Podcast. I'm Ann Alvarez, parent coach, school counselor, and mother of two. Do you sometimes struggle with your parenting role? Do you notice that sometimes you're repeating patterns that you learned in your own childhood? Maybe you are carrying childhood pain that has not been healed, and you notice that it is showing up in your parenting with your own children. Perhaps you yell or get frustrated easily. Maybe you are directing them or telling them what to do all the time, and you notice that your actions are affecting your relationship with your children. Well, parents, I totally understand this. I came from childhood pain and I learned how to be a relational parent with my children. And I can teach this to you as well. This podcast is all about learning how to heal the childhood pain that we are carrying so that we can foster healthy relationships with our kids. Join us every week for a new show, and we will dive into the healing and the fostering of healthy relationships with our children. Hello, parents. Welcome to the Masterful Parenting Podcast and YouTube channel. I'm super excited because I have a special guest. Her name is Susan Gladstein. She is a board certified health coach, functional nutrition specialist, and retired Air Force veteran with a passion for helping women reclaim their health through faith led holistic healing. After serving 23 years in the military, Susan shifted her focus to empowering women with the tools, education, and support they need to address the root causes of health challenges and experience true transformation. She is the founder of Faith Over Pharma podcast and community where she speaks boldly about the broken healthcare system and equips women with natural strategies that honor the body God designed. Susan is also the creator of the Rooted Reset, a faith led path to health and energy. And she hosts transformational retreats in Costa Rica for women ready to reset, restore, and step into their God given potential. Wow, it's so exciting.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you so much, Susan. All right, let's get into this. Um, because you have quite a story to share.
I
So,
do.
how, okay, so we talked before and you explained that your father committed suicide, and this event had an impact in the early years of your motherhood. Um, so, what have you learned about healing those wounds so you could show up differently for your children?
Thank you. Yeah, my dad was bipolar, and growing up, nobody ever really talked about what his issues were. It was very much came from a family where he just kind of like sweep everything under the rug and everything's, you know, white picket fence and roses and rainbows and everything's all good. But I always sensed that there wasn't something quite right. Um, He would overreact in weird ways, fly off the handle about things, but he would also sleep for days and days at a time. And then other times he was just completely like so fun. I mean, we would do the most fun things. It was like very exciting and he was like, almost like a Disneyland dad, like quite literally. We'd go to Six Flags and we would do all these things and when he was in those manic stages, he would write children's books and very creative. We were making like videos and things. But then after he died, of course, I felt a lot of guilt over that, but also it was a complete shock because nobody was ever very honest about what was going on with him mentally. I mean, he was even institutionalized in a hospital when I was young, and I can remember going and visiting him, and they always just said he was sick. And I couldn't understand what that meant because he was able to get a day pass to go to the zoo for the day. So it's like, well, if you're sick and in the hospital, it doesn't make any sense you could go out. And so when the pastor came to our house to tell us, I was 14 with my mom because she wanted to tell us on her own that he had taken his own life. I mean, I was completely just blindsided by it. And I actually thought it was my fault because I was a teenager and I'd gone to visit him. And back then, I would dial up my home phone line to check my answering machine to see if my friends over the summer had called and wanted to get together. And it was like 10 cents a minute. And he had gotten on to me about like, you don't have to call 15 times a day to see if your friends had called. And so I had all of this like trying to process it and thinking that he had done this because I'd run up this phone bill and he felt like that was the only answer. And so fast forward, I become a mom at 22 years old, and I have a lot of this unhealthy things. I didn't love myself, so I was always searching for love. My dad was the one that was constantly telling me that I was smart and beautiful and really like catered to my creative side. And my mom, that's just not really her nature. And as a single mom, she had a lot going on. So she wasn't filling in those gaps. So from a man, your dad's point of view, telling you all of these wonderful things about you all the time. And then I didn't have that. So I kind of just really sought that out because I didn't love myself. I sought that out in other relationships that weren't really great for me. So I think in one way, maybe for the positive, like I was probably a little bit overly honest with my kids simply because I had felt sort of betrayed by, I mean, even I talk about how my parents would tell me that my dog had run away, and I looked for that dog for 3 years. And as an adult, my brother's like, that dog ate rat poison and died. And I'm thinking, like, why didn't they just tell me that instead of spending 3 years? I think they thought that they were softening the blow of
Right.
the reality of life in all of their things. As an adult, I can see that.
Hmm.
But as a young woman and a new mom, I just felt like my parents had lied to me a lot. And so I was probably overly honest about the things that were going on in life with my kids. So it was just something that I tried to do differently than what they had done. But I also was just a shell of a woman, didn't really love myself. I was grew up in a yelling household. My dad would get upset and, he spanked us really hard, although I didn't do that myself, but yelling was just kind of the norm.
The
And
norm. Yeah.
I did that a lot with my kids. And looking back now, I've since learned that there are different ways to parent than just yelling when you're
Yes.
upset, right? And I have a
Right.
very sensitive my older son is very sensitive to that. So there was a lot of, I don't know, back and forth or trauma that probably just, he's had a lot of noise sensitivities and things. And so that my escalating of my behavior never helped his behavior. And so it wasn't until he was older that I learned to model better ways of coping than just, blowing up and
Hmm.
yelling or fighting or whatever.
Right. It's really challenging because uh, we 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 parent the way we were parented because that's what we learned. That's what we knew, and we didn't know that there was another way, right? And then once you stop and say, okay, hold on a second, this isn't actually healthy for my family. And when I remember how I felt when I was yelled at, didn't feel good, right? So that's when it's the awareness, I think, is the key to changing what you grew up with, right? But
Mhm.
our lives are very, very parallel, very similar in that I had father issues as well. And my dad had mental illness as well. Um, and so I can relate to the instability that that causes in a home when you don't know which dad's going to show up. I have the same thing with my mom. My mom, um, I would consider her bipolar, although she has not been like formally diagnosed. And she's 86 now and she's on medication. And it seems to be helping a lot with our relationship and with her mood. But growing up, I'm the same as you. I didn't know which parent is going to show up today. Is it going to be the kind, loving parent or is it going to be the angry? parent, right? That yells at you and you're not doing anything right. I don't know. It's so hard on kids when parents don't take ownership of their mental health, right? And then do
Hmm.
you know anything about your father's background? Did he have um trauma in his uh childhood?
Perhaps, but that wasn't anything any of my that, his side of the family, it was all just very roses and rainbows and not anything would ever come up that it was anything more than just perfect.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's possible, but
They don't
nobody,
talk they didn't
not,
talk about that.
no.
They don't talk about those things, right? So that's the challenge of it is not really knowing where it all came from, right?
Hmm.
So like because okay, so you learned like you're a mom in your 20s, you're young, you're figuring yourself out. You don't have great self-esteem at that age, and you're looking for love. You're looking to be loved, right?
Yep.
And so, but then you start to like, you're on this journey, you start to understand like maybe some of those things, or maybe process some of what you grew up with, right? And then that's when the transformation begins, the healing and transformation begins, right? Um, so maybe talk about that a little bit. How did you heal that?
Yeah, I think it took a long time because that when my older kids were young, my first marriage, it was my whole life I wanted to be a mom. Like I was the kid in high school who babysat kids. Like I didn't go out and party. They gave us one of those robotic dolls to take home as, in high school, and I adored it. Like I was so excited to be with this little robotic baby that cried in the middle of the night. And I could not wait to have kids. And so the first person that came along that was kind of like, this is a future I'm going to have, I sort of like fast forwarded it because I don't know why it is when we are young, we think that, we're getting too old and our life, we need to hurry up and do the things that, you're supposed to do, which was to get married and have kids. And so I had my son very, very young, and he had a lot, he was a colicky baby. And I often joke now, he's a 22-year-old man now, and he's a wonderful human being. But I joke that he had terrible twos, threes, fours, fives, sixes, sevens. Like, it was he was a lot, and it didn't help that I was immature in understanding what was going on with him, but I was also in a very verbally and emotionally abusive marriage to where anytime my son was upset, as babies are, colicky baby at that,
Yeah.
it was even worse because his dad couldn't react to that. So it was like not only was I trying to calm my child down, I was also trying to calm his dad down. Like, so I
Yeah.
was getting sort of beat up and felt responsible for all of these things. And of course, I hadn't really processed my own, traumas and guilt. And I had rushed into this relationship. And fast forward in 2019, I was getting ready to deploy to the Middle East, and my husband and I got remarried, and my husband and I had been married about 9 years, and I felt like I wasn't done. My kids were 2 and 5 when my current husband and I met, and he had 3 boys, and we felt like, well, 5 kids is enough, and so we decided 9 years into our marriage that I wanted to adopt, and he was like, well, why wouldn't we just have one of our own? And so he had a vasectomy reversal, and I thought we were going to get pregnant right away, and it didn't happen. I have to go to the Middle East. Well, right before I left, my grandfather passed away, who was very, very close to. And my stepdad, who basically had raised me, my parents started dating when I was in the 6th grade, and they got married when I was in the 8th grade. So he was a huge part of stepping in after my own dad had died when I was 14 and just really shaped the woman that I had become. And he suddenly passed away. And one funeral was Friday, one was Saturday, and I left for 6 months that Sunday. And I was angry because all I wanted was a baby. And now the Lord's taken two of my most dear father figures from me and sent me off to be away from the people I love most. Everybody else's life was continuing on, and I felt like I was at a standstill. And I actually just had to make the choice to lean into that pain. And that was really where it kind of all unraveled, where I processed through, I like relived the grief of my dad and losing my stepdad. It brought up a lot of that stuff that at 14 I never was equipped to deal with. And
Mm.
just really understanding and appreciating what they had given me, but then also learning to really just love myself. And I will say that in that process of, deploying for 6 months and then the 2 years that it took to actually have my the baby that I so desperately wanted with my husband, and the fact that she is so a mini me has been so healing to me because when I look at her, all I see is me as a little girl, and I can only see her with so much love. So, in so many ways, I've gone back to that little girl who so desperately wanted to be loved by a dad who left and abandoned her. But instead, all I see is God's love for me
Wow.
through her eyes. And I'm experiencing life through her eyes and seeing how my husband and her are interacting with one another. It's been so healing. So, I wouldn't say like, I mean, it's an ongoing process. My daughter's now 4. So it's like
Yes.
it's an ongoing process, and I'm learning a lot more about myself. And there's a lot of things from when I was little that I just sort of um I don't know. I think the Lord like takes it away from us, maybe it's just a, coping mechanism, but there's so many parts of my life that have started like memories that I have that come back when I was small that have been just so restorative and healing because I see it so differently from this space
Yes.
than I did at the time where my world was crumbling and I just wanted to please everybody to where now it's
Yes.
like I'm a healed person and I can look back on that just with so much love.
That's powerful. So you were a mom in your 20s, and now again a mom in your 40s.
Yes.
So, like, what shifted for you in terms of like perspective, healing, and the way you approach motherhood now?
Yeah, I people always say like I couldn't do it. I couldn't start all over in my 40s like, and even people will give my husband a hard time like like all your kids are out of the house. Why would you do this? You're close to retirement. And I retired from the military last year, so it is I have the beauty of starting over. And now when people see me with my younger kids, they say, "Oh, enjoy it while it lasts." And I'm like, "Oh, I know." Because my other kids are 19 and 22, they don't need me anymore. And I joke about that a lot that when my kids got to the point that they didn't need me anymore, I just started over. And but it has been so healing and restorative, but also so much better because I am healed in a lot of ways. I'm healthier physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, all the things that like I'm really much more present. Obviously, I'm retired and I homeschool now. So much of my kids' life I missed out because of work, because of deployments, because of, splitting and having a blended family. But now it's like I'm just so much more present and grateful. And even in those times where, when I was 20, things that would frustrate me about like being up in the middle of the night and missing sleep, I just cherish them because I know they don't last long. And everybody always tells you that. And when you're young, you can't really value that time goes by quickly and
Yes.
that your kids will one day not need you anymore, which is a whole other weird thing to go through when they're just living their own lives and you have no say over what they're doing. Like all stages, I think, of parenthood bring their challenges because people are like, oh, I can't wait till they're,
Yes.
out of this
Always the
stage.
next stage.
Yes. but every stage has its blessings and its,
Yes,
challenges. So I
yes.
would definitely say that I feel very fortunate to sort of get a redo and being able to just parent from a different space, but also my kids see me parenting my younger kids from a different space, and hopefully that's also very healing to them because
Yes.
maybe they don't remember a lot of how things were because there's still a lot of trauma there with their dad, but then they see me interacting with their little brother and sister, and that maybe that's also, I hope so anyway.
Yeah, yeah, because if they see that side of you, a different woman, a different mother, right? I actually
Hmm.
think that's going to be so good for them, to see that.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
my 19-year-old daughter, she specifically asked to have Fridays off in her job so that she could join me for we do homeschool field trip Fridays. And so she goes on our homeschool field trip Fridays every week. So it's like she gets to, as a young woman, re-experience like homeschool adventures together with us. So I really cherish those times that I'm like, I'm so glad that even as an adult, you still want to like hang out with me and learn and all of that. So,
It's a good sign. Like if they still want to hang out with both my boys still like to do things with me and travel with me. And I'm always shocked, like, how come? But then I realized that I did a good job with connecting. And
hmm.
that's what you did. You did a good job with connecting with your children, right? And that will keep them coming, wanting to
Yes,
be with you.
yes,
So
I always appreciate that for sure.
I know. Okay, for parents listening who are carrying their own childhood trauma, what encouragement or practical steps would you share to help them break cycles and create a more connected home?
I think that it is so difficult to go outside of our comfort zone, to process trauma, to even admit maybe some areas where we haven't done things we wanted the way we wanted to, or measured up in the way that we would have liked to. And we can stay in that negative space of guilt, of shame, of I coulda, I shoulda, woulda, all of those things. But really just being open to the process of peeling back the layers, even though it's super uncomfortable and not fun, to lean in and actually do something to make that progress happen. And it's not fun in the moment. I'll tell you, like, for me, 2019 was probably the hardest year of my life, but I was very intentional about focusing on my own health because I'd poured into everybody else, always putting myself last. I peeled back the layers of the emotional trauma and sort of sorted that out. So I wasn't living in this space of guilt and shame. I learned to love myself. And while it was really, really difficult, I wouldn't trade it for anything because it made
Yes.
me a better wife. It made me a better mom. It made me a better friend. Um, and now I'm able to share that with other people in hopes that it helps them create better lives. I will say that there is no more important or better job than being a parent. Like nobody gets to their deathbed and wish they had worked more, but you
Mhm.
will wish that you had spent more time with the kids you love. And maybe you have a strained relationship. Some of our kids are in that boat with my husband and I. Our oldest passed away a couple of years ago from a drug overdose, and we can't take that back. We can't redo anything. And so it's really important. Like sometimes you don't know what you have until it's gone. And so
Yes,
don't wait. Don't wait another day to work on you to heal those because you'll look back and wish you had.
exactly. I'm with you 100%. Oh, so good, so good, and so powerful. Um, and I know you are a faith-led woman, And God has been with you on the journey, right? On the journey of healing. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, and I think that's what's helped me to heal as well, is just leaning into God, getting my identity from God, you know, not from the child that gave these messages that I wasn't worthy or good enough. You know what I'm saying?
Sorry,
So,
it froze. It froze. I
uh,
missed what you said.
am I freezing too?
It did just then. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, just saying that God's a big factor in my healing journey as well, and in shifting the idea of my identity, loving
Absolutely.
loving myself more,
Mm-hmm.
seeing, seeing myself the way God sees me, you know?
Amen to that.
Yes, yes. Oh, so good. Okay, I'm just going to do a little recap, and then I'm going to get you to share how parents and how parents can find you. Okay, so Susan was sharing her really traumatic childhood, losing her dad at the age of 14, and that impacted her relationship on being in an unhealthy marriage and also in her mother and repeating some of the patterns that she grew up with, the yelling, realizing it wasn't good and it wasn't healthy and wanting to change that. And then she got a second chance at motherhood in her 40s and was able to work on herself and her healing journey so that she could show up differently for her kids and be a role model for her older kids to show them really this is the way to be as a mom. And she shared how important it is to love ourselves because loving ourselves makes us better, makes our lives better, and makes us better parents. And Susan also shared, which I totally agree with, that we have a window of time with our kids. And so we have to use that time. That time that we have with them is so precious. And we need to use that time and not live with regret. Because when we are on our deathbeds, we're not going to wish we worked more. We're going to wish we spent more time with our family. So I think I recapped that well. Did I?
Yes, yes. Very good.
All right, Susan, please share how parents can know more about you, where they can find you, anything you want to share.
Awesome. So obviously I host my podcast is Faith Over Pharma. You can find it anywhere you get your podcast. Also, my website is susangladstein.com. I have a Substack community that you can get to through there where I share lots more tips and tricks on holistic healing. And obviously, for women listening who are always pouring into everyone else and putting themselves on the last of the to-do list, I host wellness retreats in Costa Rica. The next one will be in July of next year. You can find information on my website as well. And on Instagram, I'm at Coach Susan Gladstein.
Wow, so great. Thank you so much, Susan, for sharing your story, your journey, and what you've learned about healing and motherhood.
Thank
Thank
you.
you much. All right. Thank you, parents, for joining today. I hope you got a lot of value from the show, and we will see you next time. Take care, everyone. Thank you, parents, for joining the show today. I hope it was valuable and that you have some useful tools to use with your children. If this show blessed you or changed you in any way, I would appreciate a review on my podcast, or subscribe to my YouTube channel, or perhaps you could even recommend our masterful parenting to your family and friends. Thank you so much, parents.